I quite often get asked how I design learning. And if you'd asked me that question about 10 or 12 years ago, like most people in our industry, I'd have probably said something like, I use instructional design methodology to craft classroom and digital experiences. However, these days, my answer would be totally different, mainly due to the extensive literature review I've done into learning transfer and how I've applied that research into my work. Now, I just used two expressions that to most people seem baffling: learning design and learning transfer. The second one being just as confusing to people in our industry as outside of it. I know there are a few different interpretations of learning or training transfer depending on which camp you sit in, but fundamentally it means to use the learning from training in a work setting as it was expected to be used. And it's that concept in and around 2012 that got me thinking, because a lot of the training I was doing was well made from an instructional design perspective. But once the learners left the classroom, neither I nor any of the clients had any idea how or even whether they were using the learning in the workplace. So after quite a lot of reading of learning transfer science papers and doing a bunch of trial and errors with our clients, what I realized is that if we don't design learning from an application point of view, even if the instructional design is groundbreaking, then it's highly unlikely that learning will get used at all. Which at the time was quite eye-opening, for me at least. So to come back to my original question, I'd say that these days, I plan for and design learning that overcomes workplace barriers first. In other words, I design learning for application. Today, let me explain how to get started with that. Once you know what a learning project is hoping to achieve from a business perspective, the design starting point has to be some kind of work-based research into how people should use the training, exactly use it in their job, so that you can identify where the application problems might lie. Quite often by surveying, asking people directly or talking to managers, you can find out what some of the barriers to application will be. Whether that's the well-documented problems, such as absence of manager support or lack of time, or something unexpected. The idea is that you should gather as much information as possible about barriers to application and document what you think they are so that you can make a case for altering the learning design to overcome those barriers. The main thing to remember at this stage is the dynamic between manager and learner, and the pressures a manager will be under that sometimes forces them to sideline new ways of doing things if they perceive that it will impact the targets they have, which they might think are best achieved by doing things the old way. Some of the things you can do to overcome workplace dynamics is to involve the manager in early design considerations. Make sure that obtainable business objectives are clearly messaged. Show how changing things up affects tasks positively in the workplace, and create support tools that make application smoother for learners and managers. Of course, having said that, the strengths of hardworking designers in our industry like you are in the creation of the learning itself. So what I'm not saying is that we should all throw the baby out with the bathwater and forget about instructional design. Making fun, entertaining, informative, thought-provoking and engaging learning is absolutely what we should continue to do. The learning transfer or application aspect, though, can't be ignored. So if we start with that and get our bases covered there first, then create great learning sessions, we'll be on a much sounder footing than if we just create the sessions alone. But knowing and mitigating for application barriers isn't everything we need to get better at. For better or worse, the pandemic has forced us all in the learning industry to change. No longer do people want to fly around having 2-day intensive training sessions in hotels while hoping that their email inboxes don't overflow before they get back to real work. And as I touched on a minute ago, those sessions don't work anyway. Instead, we're all getting used to the idea of participating in learning journeys In other words, a learning program that covers everything we need to know to expand our knowledge or up our skills, combined with targeted application and learning transfer to make sure that we have minimal time away from work while getting what we need to take a step up and make a difference. In effect, the role of the learning designer these days is to combine instructional design with work-based training use analysis to overcome application barriers using learning transfer techniques to create meaningful and impactful learning journeys. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but we'll cover all of that and more in this series. Next time, we'll have a look at exactly how to spot barriers to application and why they occur. For now, that's all for today. Please follow us here and on LinkedIn, and I'll see you soon.